All right, joining us now on the phone to react to the most recent assassination attempt on his life, in 2 months, former President Donald Trump. Mr. President, thank you for being with us tonight. This is the second assassination attempt in 2 months. I would imagine the average person could be pretty shaken up by that. Tell us what happened. How are you doing? And I have a few other follow-up questions as it relates to this.
Well, I'm doing fine. It was Sunday, and just very briefly, because I think most people have heard it, I want to start talking about the borders and the economy and inflation and all of the things we want to talk about. But it was on a golf course, Trump International in West Palm, and we heard shots ring out around the fifth hole or so. We heard shots ring out, and they were pretty obviously shots, but the Secret Service said they were definitely shots. And it turned out to be the Secret Service agent who had caught somebody a couple of holes in advance and caught him by the fence, which protects the property. He was on the other side of the fence. He saw a gun barrel hanging outside of the fence, which is pretty amazing. That's a great job, did really a great job. Frankly, I think the Secret Service did a great job. And they got me out of there quickly. And they then went after him, and they were lucky enough to have somebody that took the license plate, which was genius. And they nabbed him on the highway. But it was another day. It was very interesting. We want to get to business. We want to get to the business of running the country. Our country has never done this badly, Sean. We're like a laughing stock all over the world, and we have to get back to running the border properly. What's happening in Ohio, Colorado, and every other state is just crazy. It's like a takeover of our country by people that are coming in, and they're coming in with guns, or they're getting guns after they get in. They have the most powerful weapons you can have.
Let me ask you this, sir, if you don't mind. And Steve Witkoff, your golf partner, he happens to be a mutual friend of ours, and I'd gone to lunch with him that morning. He described in great specificity the incredible reaction time, heroism of these Secret Service agents that were surrounding you that day, and how quickly they got on top of you, got you out of the situation. A flawless operation in terms of those agents, and they deserve so much credit for what they do, that they would risk their lives. No greater love had some man to lay down their life for another, and they're willing to do that for you. And that part of the story, I mean, the fact that this country has such incredible people is a great story. But here's what troubles me. In Butler, PA, we had a sniper who was able to get on a roof within 130 yards and come within a millimeter of taking your life. In this situation, it is a well-known area that is treed, as you pointed out, with a fence on it. And this guy, according to reports, might have been there for 12 hours, or his phone pinged in the area for 12 hours ahead of time, 1:30 in the morning. And so obviously there was some type of coordinated planned attack or anticipation you'd be playing golf, or something happened. But the problem is he got within 300 yards of you with an AK-47 with a scope. Now, what I don't understand, and Eric, your son, doesn't understand, and Laura doesn't understand, and many of your family members don't understand, is when you have a treat area that is known for paparazzi taking videos and pictures of you when you're playing golf, because that's the only area on the golf course they would ever have the ability to do that. Why wasn't that area swept? Why weren't there agents on the outside making sure nobody would go in the bushes? Why weren't the bushes checked? To me, that is a colossal failure. And that concerns not just me, but every one of your supporters and every one of your family members, sir.
Well, I understand that. And in this particular case, you had a very sharp agent, as good as you could find, and did a fantastic job. But somebody could have missed the barrel of that rifle. Somebody of lesser talents, or somebody that was distracted, could have missed, or could have been shot. I mean, frankly, could have also been shot. But in this case, it was something that worked out very well. As to whether or not they should know this 2 days in advance, I can't say. I just said let's go play a quick round, because it's all business for me. It's a little bit of a form of exercise. So I like it. It's something that is good, but it's also, Sean, very important that you be able to go and do what you want in safety. I just find the Secret Service, now Butler is a very different story. Somebody should have been on that building, and that's a different story. But they also showed great. They were very brave, because when those bullets were flying, they were
diving
trying
on
to
you.
protect me.
But
they were
don't you think,
literally.
But don't you think a
Yes.
treed area leading into a fence 300 plus yards away from you, that area, as a matter of standard operating procedure, would need to be swept, and we would need to have eyes on it to make sure that nobody, be it paparazzi or in this case a would-be assassin, has access to being close to you with an AK-47 with a scope. Your sons can tell you, because they're both excellent marksmen, Don Jr. and Eric, that is the equivalent of a 1-foot putt, if you want to use a golf analogy. And so we have 2 incidents in 2 months where people with rifles and scopes get within 130 and 300 plus yards of you, which would be an easy shot for even a marginal shooter. And that, to me, and we heard the head of the Secret Service, praising his organization and saying this is a great success. The fact that they didn't cover that area, to me, is a great failure. And I understand your reluctance to be critical, but I'm very critical of it. And I just feel like, there's got to be an evaluation here immediately. Has your campaign ever been denied resources that you requested from the Secret Service?
Well, that's the big thing. We have long requested more people, more men and women, but more people. And because, we have rallies, 50, 60,000. In New Jersey, we had 107,000 people show up. There's never been anything like it. And we have long requested more people. That's true. That's the weakness. If there's a weakness, I really think that's the weakness. You still need the power of the people. We have to, you could say the manpower and the woman power to get in there and look. We don't have, or we haven't had. Now, I understand they're going to be doing this, but you could have somebody who's a president who doesn't have a lot of people watching, and it's a lot easier. And it's a lot easier situation than it is for me. We have tremendous rallies and crowds, and that's a good thing, but you need more protection. And we've long requested more people. We have, I will say, in Butler, we wanted more people. I heard them say it. We need more people here for security. And we never seem to get that. And I think we are getting it now. Somebody told me that they will be providing more people now.
Well, I would think now that maybe we can learn the lessons from it. And when I heard the head of the Secret Service saying that this almost was a perfect operation, I'm not buying that. And then praising Alejandro Mayorkas, who has been partly responsible, along with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, allowing in unvetted 11 million plus illegal immigrants from 180 countries, including countries with terror ties, allowing people with terror ties, known terror ties in the country. We've seen the crimes they've committed, murder, rape, and violent crimes against our citizens. To me, it is it's unconscionable, because all of that is preventable, and it should be, now that voting is starting in Pennsylvania, people need to know and understand all of this. But I think we have a major security failure going around, and you seem to be the #1 target for assassination in this country. And as your son said last night, how many lives do you have left? Kat has 9 lives. How many lives does Donald Trump have left? And it's scary for people that care about you.
Well, I never thought of it that way. It's an interesting way of thinking about it. I will say this, what you said on the border is right. We had the safest border in the history of our country when I left office. We had the safest border. In fact, the famous chart that I was turning right, fortunately, to look at showed the lowest, that was made up by the Border Patrol. And it was the best number in terms of drugs, in terms of people, meaning the fewest people. We had it down to an absolute science, and then it became a rocket ship right after that, and it was a shame. But the We had a great border situation. It was only going to get better, but we had it down to a real size. We had to remain in Mexico. We had all sorts of things. People couldn't come into our country until they got past it. They have to go through really rigorous tests. And it was a great thing, and now it's truly one of the great problems, one of the big problems. No country has been invaded like we've been invaded. If you look at what's going on in Ohio and Colorado and so many states, and a lot of states that don't want to talk about it yet because they're embarrassed by it, but they're being invaded by people from jails and by gang members, and we have people coming in from mental institutions, and we have terrorists coming in at a level that we've never seen before. It's crazy. It makes no sense whatsoever why they aren't closing the border. They can do it with a phone call. You close the border.
Mr. President,
it has to close.
I agree completely. I've talked about it at length. And let's not give free housing, health care, education, sex change surgery, and amnesty to those illegal immigrants, which Kamala Harris has stated she wants in her own words. I know for those of us that know you and have known you for many years, we're prayerful. We're glad you're safe. If the Harris-Biden administration has not given you and your campaign the resources they need to, they didn't give RFK Jr. the resources he needed. This needs to stop, and they need a complete reevaluation in the next 48 hours so this can never happen again. We are glad you're safe, Mr. President, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sean.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.